He's gonna attack. He knows there's one piece left, and he's waiting to see if anybody else snatches it.
You can have my piece. Let's do it.
I'm gonna go for
All right, I'll bring you some another day. The point only is there are three because there's one for next period and then there's one for night closet. I know. He makes my recipe makes 3 loaves, so I can only make like it have to be more than one bowl and stuff, and I don't really have the little dividers to rise more than 3 at a time. I thought about taking pictures and showing them the process.
If you like molarity or whatever, and you make one.
I could do stoichiometry and only make 1. I could, and I could even do stoichiometry and make 6. But I don't have molds big enough and containers big enough. But you'd appreciate the whole process really is a chemistry project because all of the ingredients, when you make bread, the best way to make bread is to weigh them all, and the recipes are always in grams. So every ingredient is weighed in grams, then you mix them all together, and even the loaves, I know that the dough ends up weighing a little over 900 grams. So I make sure each loaf is about 305 grams. And that way I know the loaves are all about the same size and will fit on the pan properly and stuff. So I'm glad you liked it. You'll have that look on your face. It's like I'm going to hide the rest of this. Okay. Anyway, I need you to understand though the little holes are because of the alcoholic fermentation. Now, just for your information, sometimes, by the way, I mix up the starter, and it's just one of those glass Pyrex bowls with one of those rubber lids on top. I'll come back and find the lid off. Like the lid will have popped up and be sitting sideways on it. How is that possible?
Yeah,
The carbon dioxide actually fills up. All right, what about, now let's go back to wine. How do they make wine?
They like get grapes.
They like get grapes, and they squish them, and they put the grape juice in a container, and that's it. How does that turn into wine? I like that. They get grapes. Actually, that's simple. Anaerobic respiration, but how? There are bacteria naturally on grapes which feed on them and destroy them. They spoil your grapes. So they take the grape juice and they seal it in a container. Now, here's the problem. Guess what else is produced besides the alcohol in the wine? Carbon dioxide. Do you think they just poured those bottles? If they did, if all wine would be carbonated, right? Like champagne is naturally carbonated because they trap it that way. In fact, my dad, for a very short period of time, somebody gave him a winemaking kit on Christmas, and he tried. It didn't work. But they had these, it was like bottles, and they had this thing, it was almost like a balloon that came out of it to fill up with carbon dioxide. It's sent through your bloodstream, they get to you. Your body is going to take the glucose through glycolysis, chop these in half into pyruvates, and pull out some electrons. All right? Imagine you are each an NAD. You're going to take the electrons, grab a hydrogen and form NADH. All right? Now, we're going to do this. What'd you make? All right. Okay, sleep you. Now, yes, we made 2 ATPs. That's fabulous. We're real happy about the 2 ATPs. Now, why am I doing this? Tell me, where does glycolysis take place? In these cytoplasms. Does that take me very long? No! And look, if I had done this process, if I had done this process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, I would have made 14 ATPs, right? Still not as much as occurs in if you do the whole process, but it's really really, really fast. And it works really good. Could I just keep going, doing this process, and skip the whole rest of the chain? Sure, but what's the problem? If I grab one more and cut it in half, what's the problem? There's no more NADs. Here is the problem. The one thing that the last thing y'all mentioned that goes into glycolysis is you have to have NADs. You have to have dump trucks pick up the electrons, right? And if you run out of NADs, this process stops too. So I was able to only cut 7 in half and get a few electrons. I can't just keep doing this indefinitely. Or could I? Well, would be a way that this process could continue indefinitely. Kobe? How could we keep them? Yes, no, you were, nice try though. Sorry, I saw your eyes shutting. All right. The problem is the NAD, right? Everything else is good. What if NAD, you could get rid of your electrons that I just gave you? Well, no oxygen involved, because the whole reason this happens, by the way, is because we're short of an oxygen. What if you could give your electrons to somebody, so you were back to NAD again? Could you not then pick up more electrons? And more and more and more. So we've got to have a way to get rid of the electrons. Does that make sense? That is the whole basis behind anaerobic respiration. And do you want to know what they do with the electrons? I forgot to give you guys either one, sorry.
Can you explain that again? Why you would want to?
So you're an NAD.
How does giving your electrons away? What?
You're an NAD. When you take electrons, you would also have gotten hydrogens in form of NADH. Right? All right, so when they, or here, I'll show you because you asked the question. The minute that this glucose is cut in half, we do the whole process, all right? You being NADH, you pick up the electrons, and in the process you get those when you form NADH. Now, I tell you, come back and I'm going to cut another glucose and get some more, but you can't, can you? Because your hands are full. You've already got, but if you could get rid of these electrons and these hydrogens, you could come and get more. Or we could keep cutting glucose in half and get 2 ATPs. Does that make sense to everyone? Even those on calculators doing math homework. I love it. I've cut off this thing. No, I know what I did actually. This is funny. But we'll see if it works. All right, the whole point is, this is called anaerobic respiration. It does not require oxygen. Remember, the point of oxygen is oxygen ultimately ends up with these electrons, right? But they have to go from the NADH to the electron transport chain to oxygen. Well, what if we short circuit and skip the whole electron transport chain, everything? Let's just skip the whole mitochondria. That's where anaerobic comes into play. Anaerobic is a fast process to get money. You know those commercials on TV, get money fast? And those places that are popping up all over with scare me to death. There's like 5 of them in a row not far from my house. You know, those cash for, check for cash and all of these. Or money for your title or title loan or whatever it's called. All right, so in other words, they're going to give you money fast. What's the catch?
Pretty large interest.
A pretty large interest. In other words, you're not going to get all the money that your check is worth, are you? You're going to be paying a heck of a lot of money to them so that you can get your money fast. Right? That's what anaerobic respiration is. Anaerobic is the cell's version of fast cash. All right? Yes, you can get ATPs for your glucose, just not very much. You can get it really fast. All right? It does not require oxidation. Or oxygen. It does not require oxygen. It's also called fermentation. It only gets the 2 ATPs from glycolysis. It is blood removed, like months earlier. Then they put it through a special machine to separate out the blood cells from the liquid. And then right before a match, you'd have his own blood cells put back in. Now why? Well, the more red blood cells you have, the more oxygen it can carry, the more aerobic respiration you can do. And it works out really, really well. It's like training in the mountains, except it's a cheating way to do it. Exactly. And since he got caught, it sounds good.
So what would be the difference between a lactic threshold and a lactate threshold? Because I've heard both ways, and lactic threshold usually is like you can run at a faster pace before you hit that than lactate. But I don't know the difference between these two.
Very good question. I would think they're the same things. We can make pyruvate and pyruvic acids the same thing. The difference is when you're dissolving water, where the hydrogen falls off the line. I would think pyruvate and lactate and lactic acid would be the same. I suspect they're really talking about the same thing in the trouble. But I'm no expert on all of this. All right, a couple quick things though. Summary occurs when oxygen is not present. It's anaerobic, so you can see why if I leave my tub open, it doesn't work as well, right? It's called lactic acid fermentation in muscle cells. It makes the muscles tired, supposedly. Alcoholic fermentation in yeast, which produces ethanol. The key here is, like I said, it's quick cash. You only get 2 ATPs per glucose instead of 34 to 36. Anyway, if you want to see the whole process, here is the process. Here's the pyruvate. Here's the glucose breaks down by glycolysis, and then it goes around to here to form the ethyl alcohol. Here's where we chop off the carbon dioxide next to formaldehyde. That's interesting. I didn't realize it was an aldehyde that we formed. Aldehyde. Formaldehyde, exactly. In lactic acid, here's our pyruvates. It just gets the electrons back in the forms lactate. Wait, oh, they're calling it lactate. They are the same thing. Jimmy!
Because you plug it down, not following the law. All these freaking things. Oh my god. This is the one you plug it in. That was interesting. It's like, I thought you were trying to tell
Unless one is to increase your blood flow.
Okay.
I'll get close.
Here you go. Pyruvate, by the way, is the key. Did you notice? In all of these, no matter what process is occurring, glucose to pyruvate has to happen. If you cannot convert glucose to pyruvate, you die. All right? Major problem. You can't have a mutation in those enzymes and think it's going to turn out okay. But the key here is which way the pyruvate goes. Does it go in the mitochondria and go through the whole citric acid cycle and make a whole bunch of ATPs? Or does it short circuit and form ethanol and carbon dioxide or lactate, in which case it's going to then, short version, you only get 2 ATPs. It is vital that you know that anaerobic respiration only results in 2 ATPs. And that, oh, one last thing, notice this doesn't take long. Glucose isn't your only source of energy, right? You know that if you go on a low-carb diet, you still live. And you're not necessarily burning glucose. What are you burning then? You can burn fat. What else can you burn? You burn lipids. You can burn proteins. Wow. Well, catabolism of various molecules from food all can result in energy. Energy can be part of anything. Here's what happens. Normally we have carbs, sugars, we do the whole process, right? But the process can be short-circuited. Proteins, for example, and you can't read this NH3 very well right here. Proteins, the nitrogen can be pulled off of the protein, and the rest of the protein turned into pyruvate. You know what happens to this NH3, this ammonia that's produced? It ends up forming urea. Oh, the stuff that makes your pee yellow? That's where it comes from, breaking apart proteins. Well, the yellow part, I mean, it'll get clearer if you have enough water, because the water comes out too. But the yellow color is from ammonia, is from breaking apart proteins. So if you go on a high protein diet, you're going to have way more of this. You're going to feed more yellow, exactly. Which is interesting because the wrestlers, when they do the hydration test, their hydration is measured by how yellow their urine is. But a lot of them starve themselves that day. If you're starving yourself and have no glucose, you're going to break down proteins. In which case, it's going to end up with more ammonia made, which is going to result in more urea made, which is going to make you fail your hydration test. Which is why you get we are done with those parts. Tomorrow we will practice questions. If you don't know the steps of cellular respiration, you need to be online looking through the song and the video.
Oh, you don't
That's all right. I get told I'm not a doctor and I get stuff done. Doctors hate me, by the way. When I go in there,
No, the players. Okay. He's like acting completely amazing. And Ohio State loses one game, and their entire team freaks out. The world is ending.
there are times I
I'm
don't
going to the NFL. Screw
I saw that.
That's because
Who is Ezekiel?
Wait,
You're going to the NFL?
Cardell
I have a
and
very
Ezekiel.
simplistic view.
that was never an option.
Ezekiel is.
Urban Meyer.
It's nice.
Oh my gosh.
He got on the
That's
stage
awesome.
and
I
won the
like
national
that.
championship last year.
Yes, but this year he is looking like a high school coach. I don't know what
It
it was like one of the. Yeah. Oh yeah. One bench.
That's
He has a,
fabulous. We remember it.
Kevin, did you see? I think it was the Navy game. We got like a minute left, and he's throwing. Where am I like to catch it? He's out there.
Urban Meyer is mental.
That's pretty
And he
good.
does. If you
Isn't that Christian?
You do a regular system.
does he take the sheet up?
Oh, crap, I need
That's
to.
Well, you can do your homework. I'll be back in a
Here,
minute.
you want to give it to me? I'll go give it to her.
Be right back. Oh, I should have seen you.
Do we need one per group or one per person?
What do you mean?
I like that hat.
One per
But I'm-
person.
I have a feeling
Crap,
it's
we did one for her.
Alright, here, let me tear mine out. Here, let me put my name on it.
I'll write your name on it. In math?
I was sweating.
I guess so.
You want to go over in this period, that's pretty bad.
What does that taste
No, we will never. I have to live vicariously through someone. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Oh. Yay! Alright, today, couple things. First off, hopefully you're doing well, learning your stages of cellular respiration. Okay, so you help me along. And I didn't do this till last night, so we were looking for food, and I apologize, but I know you also did it already. But, no, we're not gonna have a test, but I do need you to know the parts. If you don't know the parts, we're moving on to photosynthesis when you back. So I'm expecting you to know them on your own, and that means you'll be, in a way, you won't be better off with the test, but we'll do practice questions tomorrow. But, I already made it. Alright, if you go to your AP Bio page, first grade pictures like it. Notice what I have put on here for this week, cellular respiration health. You see it? And if you click on it, and let's make sure both. Or for both. You go to here, and look what's here. Here is your biorhythms respiration song. And here are the lyrics. And you can just listen to it by clicking on the title, or you can download it to your, your own music library so that you can listen to it over and over and over again. And, okay, so here's the PowerPoint with all the lyrics, if you need the lyrics to be able to sing along with my written version. And down here is that video that I showed you for cellular respiration. If you want to download it, you can. You do not have to view it. To view it, all you have to do is click on cellular respiration. And I will pop your video. Second, it's not the fastest process ever.
How do you turn that bite of food
Would you like to hear it one more time before we get started, since you need to know it?
into a chemical that a cell can recognize and use as energy? The first step is altering the food into its component chemical compounds and then getting those molecules into your cells. That process is called digestion. Once inside your cells, the process of turning that bite of food into useful energy by cellular respiration begins. The process of digestion results with carbohydrates and other molecules being removed from the consumed food and transported into the bloodstream. From there, nutrients, like the carbohydrate glucose, will leave the bloodstream through a capillary wall and enter a tissue cell. Once inside the cell, cellular respiration will completely oxidize the glucose molecule, releasing high-energy electrons. The overall goal is to make ATP, a storage form of energy for most cells. Cellular respiration is a four-stage process that begins with glycolysis. Glycolysis literally means splitting sugars, and it is the first step of cellular respiration, occurring in the cytoplasm of the cell. Glycolysis consists of two distinct phases, an energy investment phase and an energy harvesting phase. In the energy investment phase, two ATP molecules transfer energy to the glucose molecule, forming a 6-carbon sugar diphosphate molecule. This molecule splits, and the energy harvesting phase begins. During this phase, the two 3-carbon molecules are converted to pyruvate, and ATP is formed. Glycolysis is a 10-step reaction that involves the activity of multiple enzymes and enzyme assistance. In the process, a net of 2 molecules of ATP, 2 molecules of pyruvate, and 2 high-energy electron-carrying molecules of NADH are produced. When oxygen is present, the pyruvate molecules and NADH enter the mitochondria, and the next stage of cellular respiration begins. The next stage of cellular respiration involves the movement of pyruvate into the mitochondria, where it undergoes oxidation. Each pyruvate molecule is converted into a compound called acetyl-CoA. In the process of pyruvate oxidation, electrons are transferred to NAD, producing NADH, and a carbon is lost, forming carbon dioxide. The next stage is the citric acid cycle, also called the Krebs cycle. Here, acetyl-CoA will bind with a starting compound called oxaloacetate, and through a series of enzymatic redox reactions, all carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens in pyruvate ultimately end up as carbon dioxide and water. The pathway is called a cycle because oxaloacetate is the starting and ending compound of the pathway. For every glucose that enters glycolysis, the cycle completes twice, once for each molecule of pyruvate that entered the mitochondria. During pyruvate oxidation and the citric acid cycle, a net of 8 NADH, 2 FADH2, 2 ATP, and 6 CO2 are produced for each glucose molecule. In order to understand how the majority of the energy is produced by aerobic respiration, we need to follow the NADH and FADH2 molecules to the next stage, the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain is a series of membrane-bound carriers in the mitochondria that pass electrons from one to another. As the electrons are transferred between the membrane proteins, the cell is able to capture energy and use it to produce ATP molecules. Proteins in the chain pump hydrogen ions across a membrane. When the hydrogen ions flow back across the membrane through an ATP synthase complex, ATP is synthesized by the enzyme ATP synthase. Oxygen acts as the terminal electron acceptor. By accepting electrons, oxygen is reduced to form water, a byproduct of the electron transport chain. All the high-energy electron carriers from the previous stages of cellular respiration bring their electrons into the chain. From this, the bulk of ATP from the entirety of cellular respiration is produced, a net of 32 to 36 ATP. In summary, we have seen how the 4 stages of cellular respiration are responsible for converting the energy found in the glucose molecule into ATP, the energy battery of the cell. On average, 36 ATP molecules are produced per glucose molecule that enter the cell. In the process of producing ATP, oxygen is brought in from the bloodstream to be the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain. and the carbon dioxide that is produced as a byproduct is released. The goal of cellular respiration is to transfer the energy from the food that we eat daily into ATP that our bodies can use. This process starts with the eating of a snack or meal and ends with capturing the energy from the complete breakdown of the nutrients into energy and carbon dioxide.
All right, any questions? Yeah, I would say there's 5 steps instead of 4. What's the 5th step the song gives you? Remember? In the song, they separated the electron transport chain from the glucose oxidation, the chemosmotic process. In other words, the moving of the hydrogens through AT3 synthase making the ATPs, which is, they call that the chemosmosis, chemosmotic, because remember when in the last chapter, chemosmosis means chemical osmosis, something that moves and does something as it moves through really diffusion. I don't understand why it's called osmosis, because it's really diffusion. Diffusion, but you know those words are often used incorrectly. So, how many ATPs are made? Yeah, Kevin said last period he got 36 on his ATPs. That was pretty good. Kind of a good way to remember the number. So, anyway. All right, then, first stage is what? Glycolysis. What happens in glycolysis? Glucose is cut in half, and what do you get? 2 pyruvates and 2 ATPs and 2 NADHs. Now wait a second. How do you make an NADH out of a glucose? True, but what does that mean? So the electrons to make the NADH came from the glucose. But where did the NAD come from? It was there all along. Okay? Just like in a magic trick, when things magically appear, they were there all along. You just didn't see them. Because there's no such thing as magic. Anyway, the point is you need to have the NADs available to pick up the electrons, right? So let's imagine, if we would, that you are all NADs. And I have this lovely chain of starch, so let's just pretend that you made way back when we were studying polymers. Remember, starch is just a bunch of glucose put together, right? And if you were an NAD, now first off, where does glycolysis take place? In the cytoplasm. So in the intestine, the glucose would be chopped off, travel through the bloodstream, get inside the cell. The cell needs energy. The first thing it would do is add some ATPs, remember, which eventually go back. We're going to ignore that for now. But the main thing is we're going to chop this in half, right, to make, and then we have to pull the electrons out as well. We're going to pull the electrons out. And then remember, the electrons coming out of each half would be given to NAD, which the hydrogens follow, now forming NADH. Okay, we'll give you each one, pretending you're each one, because you can each be a half. All right, does that make sense? Now let's think about this for a second. Now where are you going to take those electrons? To the electron transport chain, right? And then at the end of the electron transport chain, what happens to those electrons? Get your electron. They go to oxygen, right? Everybody remembers that? Eventually, these electrons you're carrying are going to go to oxygen. And today we're going to figure out what happens though. So the intestine's going to in your cell glycolysis. But in getting those, you also get a pair of electrons. You got to pretend it's a pair. And you get some hydrogens. And now you are. What are you now? Yeah, what are you? You were NADH, and there's still a half of a pyruvate. You just didn't NADH. The pyruvate doesn't really go with it. You are an NADH, and the pyruvate's just sitting there ready to go. Where? Where's the pyruvate going to go? Into the mitochondria. The multi-enzyme complex will chop off a carbon dioxide, then the Krebs cycle takes it apart completely, blah, blah, blah. All right? So this happens, which results in you each getting electrons, you each getting hydrogen. All right, oh, a short one. Here, cut half, there's the pyruvates, you got the electrons. There we go. All right. All right. Now, here is the point. You heard about those places? They're popping up in Oakland now, which is just really sad that anything pops up in Oakland like this. Fast cash. Title loans. Cash your check quickly and get money fast. Why would somebody give you money fast for your check just because? So they can charge you quarter interest and charge you a major fee. So if you're a chef, say you've been working and you got a $100 check, do you really think those folks are going to give you $100 for your check? No. If they did, they wouldn't make any money, would they? And you got to realize they're in business to make money. That is the point of all those quick cash places. And the sad thing is that they prey on the poor, the people who are in desperate need of money fast, and then make them even poorer by giving them high interest and doing all kinds of things. All right. That is what your cells do as well. When you run out of something, what do you run out of? Oxygen. And if you run out of oxygen, what happens? The whole process, you build up electrons and the whole electron transport chain stops. Right? So basically the whole mitochondria shuts down. But wait, would glycolysis be stopped? No, back in the cytoplasm, glycolysis is still going strong. It can still be cutting glucose in half, making NADHs, until what happens? I still have glucose sitting here. I can cut another one off. The only problem is, electron, wait, who do I give it to? What's the problem? Glycolysis only works if you have all the things to start with. Half the glucose. That's not the issue. You might even have some ATPs around so you can get started. That's not the issue. What are you short of? NADs to make NADHs. You're all NADHs, aren't you? You can't take another electron right now, can you? You're a full dump truck. And if the electron transport chain stops, you can't dump out your electrons. And that is anaerobic respiration. It's going to be
Stop rolling.
Mm.
Done.